Seema, and welcome, Betty. So happy to have you here.
Okay, thank you very much, Haley. Really appreciate it. It's a great honor to be able to speak for the Women's Entrepreneur Network, and
Exciting.
very privileged.
And I'm going to give you the stage now. Welcome, Betty.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself before I get started. And that would be my background. I started off myself as something a little bit different, maybe from many people, maybe not from Haley Gray, but I started off as a research scientist. I studied physics for a number of years at the University of Alberta in Edmonton in Canada. And that was great work. I got a scholarship and we ended up working at the Toronto Western Hospital with the top neurosurgeons in the country doing work with magnetic resonance imaging and MRI. I think a lot of you might know what it is. I actually had one this morning. But I did that studying osteoporosis, which is a bone degeneration disease that is very common among women. And so I did that, and I got to work with the top neurosurgeons. It was very exciting work. But also as a woman, something happened, and that is I became pregnant. Working in the lab was a 24/7 occupation. Having a child, I think we all realize, is also a 24/7 occupation. So I gave that up for something a little bit less demanding, and that would be working with IT in the corporate world. I ended up working for a large corporation, very nice job as well, salaried, everything else. I got to work with the top executives there. It was back in the early 90s, and a lot of secretaries were replaced with personal computers, and I got the privilege of teaching the executives how to use a computer. I liked that work as well, but then another thing happened. A second child came along, did some calculations, and found out that with the daycare expenses, the childcare expenses for 2 children, having lunches, dry cleaning, travel, that all added up to the fact that I would pretty well be paying people to go to work. And so my husband and I did a calculation and figured that we could probably allow me to have that blessing of being able to be a stay-at-home mom. And that was great, being a stay-at-home mom, until it wasn't. Single salaried incomes back in the late 90s, early 2000s, that was okay, but it shortly became not okay. And that led to a lot of discussions, loud discussions about money that eventually led to a separation. And I wish at that time I'd known about business. It turns out that with all this working for someone and being a scientist, I'd become an academic snob. I didn't really understand that academics work for people that own businesses. And I didn't really understand the true nature of what business is. And now 14 years later, I solved my problems. I supplemented my income after having gone through a divorce. And I have come to realize the value of working with other people who have taken the time and the effort to learn everything they can about their respective fields, whether it be a doctor, nurse, realtor, real estate, different people, so many different people out there that I know that each one of you, if you put what you do out there in the world in the chat, then you're from all different walks of life. And what you've done is that you've created a service that each and us, every one of us who don't know what you know, get to benefit from that. So I realize the value and the exchange of value and compassion that comes with business. And my chosen field actually of business happened to be in the area of monthly expenses. Cutting monthly expenses for individuals and businesses. And I love to do that, but that's not what I'm going to talk about today because I am a business owner, a solopreneur, and it's all I do. It's the only business I do. I do it full time. And what I'd have to talk about now is actually I made notes because it's a little bit touching for things of what it was, but I thought it was important to share. So I recently had to take off the past few months to care for my father. My father had a surgery and other complications such as cancer, Parkinson's, and being 90 years old. And that kept him in a hospital located 1.5 hours away. It was life and death daily, doctors, therapists. We were able to get him into his home and out of the hospital after 2 months of lying there. And then he tried so hard to recover for that last month. But unfortunately, he succumbed to his circumstances and he died. And I'm telling you this story because during the course of my father's illness, it started off as a mere ulcer. My time in my business, my priorities and how to operate my business as a solopreneur were definitely disrupted. Morning visits turned into daily visits. Scheduled meetings were replaced by doctors and therapists showing up at the same time. I went from being a disciplined, focused, devoted, and dedicated businesswoman to a person who started to be late for meetings, missed meetings, had to reschedule meetings, and eventually wouldn't even set up meetings, prompting many thoughts in my mind that I talk to people about the difference between reasons and excuses. Now, clearly, I needed to be with my father at this time. He needed me, and there was nobody else to be there with him. And in retrospect, I'm blessed and I'm grateful that I did spend his last few months with him, caring for someone I love so dearly, so very dearly, and hearing his last words that I will carry with me forever. So I loved my father and I love my business. But this is what I thought I would share with you today, because although there were different levels of distractions that we as business owners, entrepreneurs face, we will inevitably run into things that are going to create the same kind of conflicts that I ran into while trying to manage our businesses and life as it happens. And things will happen. I'm smiling because that was a note that was said yesterday. Some things happen. Things will happen. Business changes such as client growth, expansion for solopreneurs that want to become entrepreneurs, personal changes, not all bad, weddings, births, these things. It can't all be, illnesses and accidents. There's all different levels of severity that are going to divide our attention and shuffle our priorities. So I want to talk just a little bit about the differences between reasons and excuses. Illness, COVID happened. A lot of people had a lot of changes, had to learn how to use Zoom, perhaps had to change their business. Those were things. Illnesses can prevent you from going to a meeting or setting an appointment. Accidents for yourself, your family, a friend. For me, it was a family member. Say that your power goes out, your internet goes out, your client doesn't show up. Those are reasons that you will cancel an appointment or not go to an appointment. Staff doesn't show for employers, that can be an issue. These are things that I noticed are outside of our control. You can't control these reasons. And then I looked at the excuses. Well, excuses might be something like, you guys might know reasons, you all have them, I'm sure. An excuse would be like you slept in. You didn't set the alarm. You didn't get enough sleep. Didn't charge your laptop. Didn't charge your phone. Not feeling up to it. These are all things that you can control. Those are the real differences, I thought. The reason for missing something that you can justify would be something that you can't control, but excuses are things that we can control. So why does it matter to go through this, and why have I decided to talk about this? Well, it's mainly because of the mindset that is created that we as business owners who care and are passionate about our respective businesses, who understand character, authenticity, and accountability to our clients and ourselves through integrity, following up, following through, establishing trust, getting to know one another, setting up collaborations and referrals. These are all things that had occurred to me that I was going through in the last few months that made me think that, yes, I had a good reason, a very excusable reason. However, as the number of meetings added up, my father's situation didn't improve and in fact got worse, and my time for business reduced even more. I realized that it didn't matter if it was a reason or an excuse. If I was trying to get to the airport on time and I was late due to an accident, or if I simply slept in, it wouldn't matter. I would still miss the plane. And so as I missed more and more meetings that I simply couldn't attend, I came to realize that I was unreliable. Okay, and that's the language. Not untrustworthy as the definition of unreliable, but definitely not dependable, not predictable, and I couldn't be relied upon to make a meeting or sit at a meeting or even really be present when I was at the meetings. This became increasingly difficult to manage emotionally. My goals, my business plan, integrity, my honor were all at risk daily. And while I knew there was no choice, it still bothered me inside. I knew I was doing the best I could, and I tried to attend some meetings. I'd leave a meeting, a weekly meeting. I'd say, see you next week. And then I'd miss the next meeting and reschedule. And I wasn't following through on my word. So finally, I got to the point that I wouldn't even set appointments with people because I couldn't guarantee that I would be there. So I listened to a podcast the other day by Mel Robbins, and her speaker spoke of the threshold. And this threshold she defined as the number of things that you can tolerate that are manageable before things become unmanageable. Now, it's really important to know what your threshold is and to keep within it. My threshold was definitely breached. That little voice, the not you voice that's inside you, got really loud. And I not only lost momentum, but went into reverse momentum. And worse, my health was impacted. I suffered 2 strokes, little ones, okay? And I've now developed signs of pending heart failure due to stress. I know this all sounds very gruesome, but there is an upside to my talk here. The thing is, the heart failure is reversible, but it's something that I would like you to pay attention to, that if you feel that little thing, that little knot in your stomach, I've never had anything like this happen to me before. I've never had any health issues, but I started feeling that little twing in the stomach. I skipped drinking water. I did things because I was attending to something else. And all those things started to add up. And stress is, please don't underestimate that, because it does hit you and it is a real threat to your mental and your physical health. So since I decided to talk about this, I've thought about a couple of other reasons besides the reasons that I've stated that have to do with business, that a person can end up missing meetings or being overwhelmed or having their threshold threatened. Okay. As solopreneurs, we're solo. So what happens if you suddenly get an onslaught of customers, something we desire? What happens in this case? You might want to start looking at managing your schedule, looking at starting to expand your business. Even expansion can start taking up more time or start to threaten your threshold. Virtual assistant, establishing partners. You guys can put in the chat. There's all sorts of ways. Put in what you do, because I think this is the whole point of the talk here. If what you do is highly skilled, you can actually create a duplicatable system. You can use a manual, make a manual up for people to follow, maybe divide up what it is that you do. So the reality of this is that some things are outside of your control and they can't be ignored. Family is as important as business. Potential death and loss and permanent loss is more important than a lost client. Client growth and business expansion shouldn't be stopped. You definitely don't want that. You definitely want to expand your business. It's counterproductive to do that. So you want to be able to integrate all areas of growth, all areas, personal or otherwise, so that your business continues to grow. So what are we going to do about this? So here's some things. And I actually talked to a few people in the network about what to do. And the main thing is that you want to establish control. And the best way to do that is to be prepared. Okay, things happen. Preparation gives you control. So here's some ideas. Some of you guys actually do many of these things. Learn to discriminate, sort, divide, delegate, delete, the D's. Get counseling. Especially for things that are excuses that keep coming up or showing up in your business. Get counseling, get coaching, go into self-improvement programs for bad habits or fear-based excuses. Use calendars, automated systems, templates, manuals, virtual assistants, artificial intelligence. Learn skills to strategize, prioritize, negotiate. Most importantly, determine your threshold of what you can tolerate. What is manageable? Find out what is manageable and stick to it. How much more can be added for what you do before it is too much? You can make lists, set commitments and goals, and then accountability and discipline. So find your work-life balance. That's not always possible. Say no. Okay, learn to say no. If you're in an accident, that's an easy way to project. If you're in an accident, you can't be reached. Set hours of operation, stick to them, and understand that there are times that you do not cross that threshold and get to a position that will threaten your health. Of course, if you become very unhealthy, your business isn't going to do very well. So think about that. Think logically. Slow things down, and definitely mind your self-talk. Let some things go. Things are what they are. Okay. So what I did, I found myself, especially on that hour and a half drive at times, and there was a lot of times to be thinking through that, I would think past the issue. I would think of why I'm doing my business. A lot of people who know me know that my plan is to winter in Europe, where it's cold. I'm in a northern climate. So you can think past that. Think about what your business is giving you. You have to postpone maybe working at certain things. You have to alter your schedule a little bit, but you can think about that. Find areas of escape. Use hopes, use wishes, use prayer. But here, the most important thing of all, and the thing that involves us all of us here with Women in Entrepreneur Network, all the people that are in business, look around you. Look at the people of what you do in the business, in your business. Look at what people do that you've met. Look at all the people that I had for support that I could talk to. Consult with the professionals that are in Women's Entrepreneur Network. They've dedicated their time to be an expert in each of their own areas, and they can help you. Okay. If you are already busy, or your desire and work ethic is to be busy, to have clients, to follow through and deliver what your business promises that you will deliver, please consider that things happen. There's a fixed amount of time in the day, week, month, and year. For me, I got to spend time with my father, and that was invaluable, essential. I was able to squeeze out 8 to 12 hours a day, 5 to 7 days a week. And I could take the time, and now I know that I can have that time. I can now take that time, and I can find a way, a business plan to set up the preparation I need to get more control, so that if life decides to challenge me again, which it will, then I will have a little bit more support around me to go to. So just on the last note, we are coming into a second quarter, the end of a second quarter, last couple of weeks of the month. And we're going to be going into, and then June, and then we've got the last half of the year. So this is really exciting. I personally am getting right back now on track for my 2023 goals. Last time I spoke with a large group, I talked about the 90-day year. So that's another quarter coming up. And I just want to end with the fact that business builds in steps. Sometimes one step forward, one step back. Sometimes one step forward, 2 steps back. Sometimes 2 and multiple steps forward and 1 step back. But this is the way business grows. It goes up, it goes down. But thank you all for everything that you do that supports all of us to help us get through things, so that when we have to be distracted from what we're doing in our business temporarily, that we've got people like you that have been taking the time to learn what you do. That's really important. And thank you for the network, Haley, very much.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for sharing this, because, I have my own rounds of distraction going on in the background. So I was at the emergency room until 3:00 this morning with one of my kids, and, it is life. She's fine. She's okay. She just had surgery last week, and she had a minor complication last night. So we were getting her checked out. So life happens, and I'm grateful for everybody in this network as well. And I'm grateful for you being here, and thank you for sharing your story.
Okay. You're welcome.
How does somebody go about getting in touch with you?
Well, I'm going to put my information in the chat. I don't know if people can see that outside of the studio, but I do have an